Conservatorium Maastricht, where we continue with our second master research presentation of today. We will first watch the video presentation of Morozs-Bejers, and after that we will continue here in the live room with the Q&A.
Hello everyone, my name is David, and the question I'd like to pose today is, do we really know what we're doing? This is the simple yet profound question, is the very core of my research. My master thesis explored dynamic interplay between contemporary jazz music and philosophy. I wrote this thesis especially for composers, musicians, musicologists, philosophers, and advanced students who are interested in relationship between creativity, authenticity, and our society in general. Through my research, I've been inspired by several important philosophers who form the foundation of my thesis. Those include Martin Heidegger, who introduced the concept of Dasein, Jean-Paul Sartre, who emphasized freedom and the individual responsibility to live authentically, Theodor Adorno, who is known for his critical views on capitalism and jazz music, Slavoj Žižek, who critically examines how ideology shapes our desires and cultural preferences, Jacques Lacan, the French philosopher and psychoanalytic, and finally Rainer Maria Rilke, an Austrian poet and philosopher who significantly influenced my own compositions and lyrics. Let's dive deeper in those ideas together. Now, before I introduce my sub-questions, I'd like to briefly explain why my main question, do we really know what we are doing, became so central to me. Once, Keith Jarrett said,
beginning, there's an audience waiting for a sound, and then they think, I know what I'm doing, but this is completely not true. I know less now than ever about what I'm doing.
He said this while reflecting on the Köln concert, which he performed also 2 sleepless nights and nearly canceling due the hesitation and bad condition. This moment beautifully illustrates the tension between conscious interaction and subconscious creation, between doing and understanding. And that's what this thesis explores, the space between action and reflection, music and philosophy, improvisation and ideology. To explore this, I structure my thesis around 2 pairs of sub-questions. First pair, perception and illusion. Does music create its own meaning, or does it only shape how we perceive reality? Does music help us break free from the illusion imposed by society? This question examinates whether music is a self-contained language or culture mirror, and whether it has a potential to liberate from the ideological illusion that shape our world. Here I draw on Plato's allegory of the cave, Adorno's view music as a commodified illusion, and Žižek's critique of ideology.
You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This idea also beautifully captured in The Matrix, when Morpheus offered Neo the choice between the blue pill, remaining the comforting illusion, and the red pill, waking up to reality. Those two pills symbolize the core contrast I explore. The blue pill, music as illusion, what shaped perception, and the red pill, music as the path to break free and see more clearly. The Matrix itself has heavily inspired by Plato's allegory of the cave and Jean Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality, where simulation begins to replace and define what we experience as a reality. This connection shows how ancient philosophers' ideas continue to influence modern culture narratives. Second pair, authenticity and the culture. How do we know if we are being authentic or if society dictates our authenticity? Do we shape culture or does culture shape us? Let's start with authenticity. For Jean-Paul Sartre, true authenticity means living freely and shaping your own identity through action. He saw jazz as a symbol of this, spontaneous, free, and created in the moment. So we jazz musicians, for him, reject fixed roles and create themselves through their music. Martin Heidegger offers another important view. He believed authenticity means confronting the truth of our own existence, what he called Dasein, or being there, and making choices that come from our inner understanding. When we lose ourselves in routines, expectations, or impersonal social roles, we fall into what he calls das Man, the self. This is the state of living according to what one does or what they say, rather than acting from our own being. Authenticity for Heidegger requires stepping out of this and facing our mortality, making decisions based on who we truly are. Theodor Adorno had completely different view. He believed jazz had become commercialized, less about freedom and more about market trends. For Adorno, jazz pretends to be free, but actually trapped in patterns, repetition, and industry demands. So one sees jazz as freedom, other as illusion. This clash captures bigger question. Can we ever create something truly own, or we always shaped by what society expects of us? Then comes the next question. Do we shape culture or does culture shape us? Slavoj Žižek explores this idea through pop culture.
I'm giving you a choice. Either put on these glasses or start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time. The name of this trash can is ideology.
Take, for example, Beethoven's Ode to Joy. It's been used by European Union, the Nazis, and Soviets, all with the different meanings.
It can be used by political movements which are totally opposed to each other. In Nazi Germany, It was widely used to celebrate great public events. In Soviet Union, Beethoven was lionized and the Ode to Joy was performed almost as a kind of a communist song. In China, during the time of the Great Cultural Revolution, when almost all Western music was prohibited, the Ninth Symphony was accepted. It was allowed to play it as a piece of progressive bourgeois music.
Or take a look at German band Rammstein. Are they criticizing authoritarianism or just using it as a style?
Enjoyment has to be, as it were, condensed in some minimal tics, gestures, which do not have any precise ideological meaning. What Rammstein does is it liberates these elements from their Nazi articulation. It allows us to enjoy them in their pre-ideological state. The way to fight Nazism is to enjoy these elements, ridiculous as they may appear, by suspending the Nazi horizon of meaning. This way, you undermine Nazism from within.
And then there's Gangnam Style. People laugh at it, thinking they were outside the joke, but in doing so, made it even more successful. Žižek say that's how ideology works the best. When we think we're not part of it, even though we are. So again, the question, we shaping our world or are we being shaped by it? Even when we think we are resisting. This question about authenticity and the culture influence are not abstract. They deeply personal and practical for anyone creating music or art today. My research follows a practice-based methodology. That means the core of this thesis is not just theoretical reflection, but artistic action. Writing, arranging, performing, and analyzing my own compositions. Throughout this process, I worked through a constant dialogue between philosophy and music. I didn't start by trying to illustrate philosophical ideas. Instead, I allowed the concept to influence my intuition and creating process, to shape how I wrote harmony, lyrics, form, and arrangement. One of the key tools I used was Hegelian dialectic. For me, this meant embracing contradictions, both musical and philosophical. Structure of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, I explored how opposing ideas such as structure versus freedom, clarity versus ambiguity, beauty versus chaos could be held together in one musical space. Also relied on reflection. After composing, I would step back to analyze what I emerged. This progress helped me recognize connection between what I was doing musically and what I was thinking philosophically. So this project combines both conscious decisions and subconscious intuition with a theory and practice informing each other. It's not about providing philosophical ideas through music, but exploring how philosophy can deepen our awareness of what we do when we create art. With that in mind, let's move into the core of this thesis, the compositions. I begin with the first piece, Wie man lebt. Wie man lebt, or How to Live, was one of the first pieces I wrote for this project. I started scratching it about 1.5 years ago, during a time when I was reading a lot of Slavoj Žižek and Jacques Lacan. It began quite spontaneously, almost like a symptom of my own questions and about meaning, direction, and existence. The title comes from a conversation from one of my friends who said life would be much easier if there were a manual. That's really stuck in my head, and I started thinking, can there even be a manual for life?
In der Welt der Schatten, an der Wand auf dem Bild, in der Stille der Gedanken, wo die Träume mich umkreisen.
In der Welt der Schatten, an der Wand auf dem Bild. In the world of shadows, on the wall, in the picture. This image directly references Plato's allegory of the cave. The idea, what we see and believe, might only be shadows of something more real. In this world of illusion, how do we begin to understand anything about life? Literally, this song moved between clarity and confusion. I wanted in the lyrics to reflect what it feels to be alive in our times, where we are constantly overhealing with the information, expectation, and self-help advices.
Erwacht das Leben, wenn die Freiheit uns verführt, die Stille, wenn die Sterne tanzen rein, Licht am Ende des Tunnels ist doch bald in Rauch gehüllt.
In the pre-chorus, I use descending chromatic line, which creates a feeling of falling, of hope that quickly turns to instability. In the lyrics that sit on top of this is ein Licht am Ende des Tunnels ist doch bald im Rauch gehüllt. This directly inspired by Slavoj Žižek's reinterpretation of the common phrase he says,
And I will ask you, using my old joke, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or is this light a train?
This pre-chorus, I was inspired by Bill Frisell's piece throughout. And finally, chorus.
Wenn ich wüsste, wie man lebt, würde ich dieses Lied nicht schreiben. Wenn ich wüsste, wie man lebt, bräuchte ich dieses Lied nicht mehr.
The lyrics, wenn ich wüsste, wie man lebt, würde ich dieses Lied nicht schreiben. If I knew how to live, I wouldn't be writing this song. This isn't just ironic, it's honest, and the act of writing this song is already admission that I don't know how to live, but I'm trying. In the end, Wie man lebt, it's not about giving answers, it's about exploring and feeling of not knowing. My piece, Love is a Beautiful Catastrophe, is a reflection of Slavoj Žižek's philosophy and draws inspiration from Radiohead's song Let Down. I began writing this piece while thinking about Žižek's statement.
I will now repeat my old thesis. I think that love, and I'm talking now about erotic love, is a catastrophe, literally.
This paradox that love is both deeply beautiful and profoundly chaotic inspired both the lyrics and musical structure.
I am sailing on a sea of noise and sound. Moments are passed like a ship that sailed. The doubts and fears that hold me locked in place on this sea of noise that holds me bound. My feet are on the ground, but the world is upside down. The world is coming to an end, but never seem to drown. I'm trading water in a sea of doubts and fear, but I know the shore is near and you are here.
I'm sailing on the sea of noise and sound. Moments are passed like a ship that sailed. The sea of noise captured an overhealing emotional atmosphere where love and existence blur together. Life is chaotic, full of doubts and fears, but somehow held together by the presence of another person.
Love is a beautiful catastrophe, a chance to find what we are meant to be.
The horrors embrace the contradiction. Love is a beautiful catastrophe, a chance to find what we are meant to be. This line expressed the core idea of the song. Love isn't just peaceful or poetic, it's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful. But that house can lead to growth. It becomes a mirror which we discover the parts of ourselves. Philosophically, this reflects Hegelian dialectic. Life moved through opposites. Love creates disruption and conflict between self and other that can push us towards a deeper understanding. This emotional contradict is exactly what makes love meaningful. Zwei Einsamkeiten or Two Solitudes. This is a song that explores the delicate interplay between connection and isolation, both musically and philosophically. The inspiration for this piece comes from Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, where he writes, "Love consists that two solitudes project and touch and greet each other." This idea serves as a starting point for both lyrics and the musical framework. At this core, Zwei Einsamkeiten reflects the paradox of human relationships. How two fundamentally alone individuals can find moments of profound connection without losing themselves.
Wo willst du hin in dieser Nacht, wo Sterne fallen im Dunklen erwacht, in unseren Herzen, da brennt ein Feuer, zwei Seelen suchen, was immer war.
The first verse, wo willst du hin in diese Nacht? Where do you want to go in this night? Lyrically, the song moves between longing and distance. I was also deeply influenced by Elena Torna's songwriting from band Daughter, capturing loneliness as something poetic, not purely tragic.
Drifting apart like two sheets of ice, my love. Frozen hearts growing colder with time.
Yet, interesting thing happened after completing the song. I noticed the first line, "Wo willst du hin in diese Nacht?" It's identical to the opening line of Rammstein ballad Zeman. Which has long been one of my favorite bands. Perhaps subconsciously I borrowed this line from Rammstein, a band I've admired since my teenage years. This echoing itself reflect on my central question: do we really know what we're doing? The refrain express the existential paradox. Zwei Einsamkeiten, die sich berühren. Two solitudes that touch each other. Gemeinsam allein, doch immer verbunden. Alone together, yet always connected. This reflects Jean-Paul Sartre's idea that even though we long for connection, each of us still remains in our own inner world. Love doesn't take away our loneliness, but it can make it feel lighter, more meaningful. Yet, Zwei Einsamkeiten suggest that acknowledging this solitude and that allows true connection, not illusion. Musically, the melody mirrors those themes. The verses move in small, stepwise motion, reinforcing introspection and carefree searching. The range is narrow, reflecting emotional containment. Later, a surprising modulation to G major brings a fleeting sense of hope. Ultimately, Zwei Einsamkeiten recognize that love and genuine connection don't take away our basic loneliness. Instead, they help see and accept it. By understanding our solitude, we can connect more honestly and deeply with others. The unintended reference to Rammstein highlights this idea. Even when we think our creative choices are fully intentional, our subconsciousness often shapes our work in unexpected ways. It brings us back to the core of the question do we really know what we're doing? Before I end, I want to briefly mention 3 other songs I composed for this project that will also be part of my graduation program. Aufgehen was very first song I wrote in German. The title means to rise up or to open up, and it reflects my own experience of moving to Germany and starting over in a new place. It was inspired by Rainer Maria Rilke, a poem Lass dir alles geschehen, Schönheit und Schrecken.
Lass dir alles geschehen, Schönheit und Schrecken. Lass mich alles erleben, Schönheit und Schrecken.
And it's about learning to accept both beauty and pain of life, letting things unfold rather than trying to control everything. Trotz allem, which means despite everything, it is a song about resilience. I wrote it after going through difficult experience with people who didn't value honesty and kindness.
Du könntest sagen, ich sei nicht gut genug. Ja, du könntest mir erzählen, was unendlich Seiten füllt. Du könntest glauben, dass du über mir stehst, dass ich meine Welt bestimmt.
It draw on the energy of rock and emotion of blues, and for me it was a way to say I'm still here despite everything. I continue. No more words. It is about absence, memory, and what's left unspoken. It was inspired by jazz standard I didn't know what time it was, and harmonically of Have You Met Miss Jones? But instead of nostalgia, I wanted to create something more haunting, how silence sometimes says more than words ever could.
I don't remember the time or the day, just the warmth of your glow and touch. Your voice so soft, yet it cut through the haze, reached my soul, but I fumbled too much. I don't remember the time.
Those songs, like other, aren't just composition, they are pieces of my musical identity. Through this project, I realized something unexpected. Analyzing your own music is helpful, but at some point it can feel a little bit meaningless and even destructive. It breaks things apart that we're creating in a very intuitive and emotional way. And to be honest, I am more interested in how my music feels to other and what it evokes, what it communicates. What mattered most to me was not proving a concept, but expressing something real. And I think that's what authenticity is about. I started writing in German, not because I live in Cologne now. Actually, it goes further back than that. When I was a teenager, one of my favorite bands was Rammstein, and I think they one of the most authentic bands ever. Later, I discovered Radiohead, then Daughter, and other pop, rock, and metal bands. Each of those artists shaped something in me. They helped me realize authenticity isn't about genre. It's about feeling something and turning that into sound. Even now, after studying jazz, analyzing giant steps, or diving into G. McNeely harmonies, I still return to what moves me. Not because it's cool or impressive, but because it's mine. And I want to keep doing that despite everything. We're not living in the 50s. We don't play in a smoky basement or ride in a broken Cadillac through Harlem. We're living in a world of screens, of Spotify, of Instagram filters and fake smiles. But still, we need to be real, never left. I'm not trying to be Charlie Parker or Radiohead or Rilke. I'm just trying to play what I feel in a world that both it's too much and not enough. Maybe that's all that is. A bunch of songs trying to tell the truth in a time when it's easier to lie. Thank you.
I'm all set. Are we? Is the live stream ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Audio's ready too.
Good. Welcome back in the live room. Thank you, David, for your video presentation. We will continue now with a Q&A. And I would like to turn again to Janning Truman, who's the coach supervisor. Could you kick it off?
Thank you very much. Thanks for this presentation and for this for your thesis you hand in. So you talk about the interplay of philosophy and contemporary jazz, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering a bit what you take out of that. I'm doing this interplay between philosophy and jazz for your own music. You have a lot of different kind of tunes that you were recording for this process and also playing live, I assume. So I want to talk about your conclusion in the end, especially when it comes to this question: what is authentic, right? Can you give us, in your own words, again a little bit overview about when you find yourself satisfied within your music, and can we say then this is authentic then?
Authenticity, it's a complex thing. So also through those philosophers what I mentioned, yeah, actually every philosopher have his own meaning of authenticity. So for me it's more Heidegger. So this what's really truly for you, that's why I choose those bands and those reference for my own music, because I feel like it's more important to me. So, and I agree with Heidegger about this concept of Dasein. So do what it's really truly to you. But it's hard because you always have these doubts and for example, in the same Life is a Bit of a Catastrophe, I try to put this, like we always like playing in the world in fears and doubts, but you still need to go with your what's truly matters to you, basically.
And one question following up, so about authenticity again, I would understand it like authenticity is always something that's objective.
Yeah.
And can never be subjective. How do you see that?
Yes, I agree with that. So what's something authentic for you, it could be inauthentic for others, but yeah, it's a good question.
I just come to this point because you just said before that if like Heidegger, if he's satisfied with his work, it becomes authentic, as I understand. So, but I would say, like, I got my feeling that it's always objective what someone's authenticity, because who like there is no, because we still talk about music and not about crafts work, right? Is there a right or a wrong? So this would be something that comes, and this comes really out of your, that I take away from your work, is that it's not a clear yes or no when it becomes to authenticity.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I also mentioned, for example, for Theodor Adorno, jazz was inauthentic, absolutely. But for Jean-Paul Sartre, jazz was the most authentic music. And for Heidegger was another. So it's kind of like up to you. So yes, it's very not very concrete. So I cannot give you yes or no.
Yeah.
So this I also wrote in my thesis.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question a bit more about the writing, maybe.
Yeah.
Because reading through your thesis, it's quite hard to distinguish between opinion and fact. And but once you reach the conclusion, once you arrive there, you quite clearly state it is clearly stated that it became a more personal reflection, rather than a research into the relation between philosophy and jazz composition, right? That's what you state there. And that's also what you come away with, yet you come away with that in quite some doubt. Do you grasp what I'm saying? Do you understand what causes that in the writing? Why it feels like you're sometimes in doubt whether something is, placed as a fact or your opinion, the writer's opinion, or is it a quote? These kind of questions sometimes arrive. Can you understand where I'm getting from?
You mean about the quoting and my own interpretation? You mean? Yes.
Let's say you're. How do you feel? Maybe it's better to ask it this way because it's very suggestive how I did it. Maybe it's better to ask it this way. Do you feel that through the way you wrote, you clarify well if things come from your sources or from you?
I took specific those sources because it's more connected with me, it's more resonate with me. So the same Rilke, Žižek, so main influence was Rainer Maria Rilke and Žižek, like for the I took exactly those quotes. Love is a catastrophe. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, and, that's a good example. So that's actually an example I also felt stood out. Like you take over the statement from Žižek as though it's your own, right? Instead of that, I had expected a discussion of that. Do you get that? Do you understand what I'm saying? He says, he just states love is a catastrophe.
But I
and
agree.
Then I'm expecting that to be discussed.
I agree with him.
You agree with him, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the problem I feel, like there's this tension there, Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? How did you intend the text? What are you trying to convey with the way that you wrote it?
So it's the same like Hegel and dialectic, like thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So I took this quote as a thesis, and my antithesis is kind of like my own interpretation. So also my influence from Radiohead, from my experience of music, the same like Radiohead is more indie, but it's on bossa nova, and so it's kind of like synthesis of and it's also like philosophical. So also many philosophers.
Also on your side, are you also actively making philosophy, or is the philosophy taken from others? I will clarify. In your methodology, you state that it's practice-led, practice-based research, and you integrate philosophical analysis. Clear, you know, you refer to a lot of that. Musical composition, also clear as a tool, right? And then the last one, ideological critique. Is the critique coming from your sources, or is it you who does the critique?
I don't want to criticize anything, but
no. But did you in your text?
It's more, coming from the same Žižek. In some part, I agree with him, but I don't want to put like ideological. I don't want to put something ideological into my music and.
No, but in the text.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the music in the text.
No.
You did not intend to do your own ideological critique.
No.
Okay. All right. Any questions in the room? Octavian.
Yeah, so because you basically were kind of putting these ideologies that you were resonating with through lyrics, right? And also you were describing there were also some moments in the melodies where you were using melodical techniques and also harmonic techniques to kind of help transmit that message. Did you only explore these realms, or have you also looked into, for example, how do I use the form or tempo or other of these compositional aspects to represent the idea?
To be honest, not really. So it's more intuitive. It was more intuitive, and I was more, like I mentioned, Bill Frisell. Also, the name of the song throughout also was, and for example, it's interesting how Bill Frisell like took those harmonies, and I felt, oh, it's interesting. It's kind of like resonate with me. But not. I would say it's more intuitive. It was more intuitive and more in a process, not exactly. So I was trying to make it more natural. So natural process, not like putting one concept or another, trying to make the very scientific, but more like natural. Yeah, I would say.
And then follow up to that, so then the correlations to, for example, the concepts you were mentioning from the people you studied, they came then after the composition, or did you write the composition with that in mind, and then a little bit of follow-up analysis kind of led to that correlation?
Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so is it more like you just knew the concept and you said, okay, I want to write a song about this, and then you write a song about it, and then afterwards you realize, oh wait, so in the lyrics here I'm kind of mentioning these similar concepts. This is my link to what I was saying? Or was it more in a sense of like, I know these concepts, let me try to figure out a little bit how is this best represented, and then after you finish the song you can say, okay, this is how I made this link.
So there was many interesting things in creation. So for example, some lines I wrote it, but after that I realized, oh, actually it's from Plato. The same phrase in this song, Zwei Einsamkeiten. I actually, after I finished the lyrics, I finished the arrangement, I even finished the recording, and after that, wait a sec, it's from Rammstein, and it's like, it was like interesting. So I wasn't like precisely took this idea and this idea, but it's kind of like naturally. So during my creation process, I was reading the same Heidegger, Žižek, Lacan, Jean-Paul Sartre, and it's kind of like naturally flows those ideas through me. And now and during the making this video, writing the analysis of my own composition, it was actually hard to understand what I took consciously and what was subconsciously. It was really hard to separate those ideas, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one of the last questions. It's about your sources. It's a wide range of sources you use, right? So how did you decide which ones you want to include, and especially I wanted to hear what kind of source this was, where we saw this video from, and a narrative speaking about Rammstein and someone, and the other one. So there was a source you use for different, like one video, or like who uses you for different, who are different sources within your thesis, you know? So where's that one coming from, and what kind of context you took it out of, and in general how you find your sources?
You mean for the video, or
yeah, there was
yeah.
There was one source come up differently but one narrative with an accent speaking about Rammstein and
What
was it?
I make a reference there. So it's a movie, The Perfect Guide to Ideology, and Žižek was. So it's a film. Director is a Sophie. I forgot her last name, but it's open source, so you can watch this movie. So it's a full. Yeah, I cut it like those.
And Žižek is talking about it. Žižek is the comment.
Yeah, Žižek was talking.
Okay.
Okay, so you took that narrative also in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That
come back to
clarifies it, yeah.
that was it. Okay, and the other sources came up like Plato and like every other source, like in relation to your topic in general. Okay, good.
Yep. Any more questions here?
Good.
All right, then I would like to thank you, David, for your presentation. One final word. I would like to mention that in 2 weeks, on the 27th of May, we continue with the research presentations here. Thank you.